This is Tyrese Haliburton, and you're listening to Setting the Pace.
And just like that, the Cleveland Cavaliers' 12-game winning streak comes to an end thanks to your Indiana Pacers taking down the Cavs 108-93 in Cleveland. What a victory by the Pacers. Best victory of the season. Here to talk with me about this game is your favorite co-host. It is Michael J. Facci. Facci, welcome back to another episode here of your go-to Pacers podcast, Setting the Pace.
Man, I am on cloud nine right now. I could not be more proud of this team because here's the thing. I went into this game, I'll be honest, said this is going to be a really tough one to win. This is Cleveland in Cleveland. They're 33-4. This is the fourth best start for any team in NBA history. On their home floor, 20-1. And then the way this game started, being down 10-0, I went, okay, it's going to be a long night. But Indiana just kept taking it on the chin and kept throwing punches. They kept going, and that second half, man, that was something. I'm right there with you. I think this is hands down the best one of the season, and that includes 2 victories over Boston.
Indiana wins the second half 68-40. They trailed the half by 13 points. It was 53-40. Indiana only scored 40 points in the first half. They held Cleveland to 40 points in the second half. They were absolutely dominating in this game, and we have to bring this up because it's probably the biggest storyline of the game aside from the win, is Tyrese Haliburton does not return in the second half because of a hamstring injury, which is the same hamstring that he had previously injured back last year against the Celtics. And it feels like every January, the Pacers lose Tyrese Haliburton in the middle of the game because of a hamstring injury, and the Pacers win that game. So I think it's interesting that the Pacers win this one. They absolutely dominate in the second half, and we'll get to what we thought went well for this team. But Tyrese Haliburton hurt. Obviously we've known that there's been some issues back and forth here with this hamstring, but for him not to play in the second half after playing through it all season long and not missing a game, it's something to monitor. I don't want to freak out just yet, but man, this does not feel good in my stomach.
It just feels like every time something's going really good, there's like something else to worry about. Like I feel like mentally I've been thinking like, okay, Aaron Nesmith's got to be coming back very soon. Like it's got to be close. And then now there's an issue with Haliburton. And I feel like you have to take this very cautiously. Knowing what we've been through and how things went last year, I don't think this is something where he's just going to be out there against Cleveland next game. Like I said before, I'm no doctor. I'm not on the medical staff. Don't take my word as it relates to, any injuries. But we do know how important Tyrese is to this team, and you don't want this to linger on. It's a shame because we're playing really, really good basketball right now. And I loved what I'd seen out of Haliburton lately, but he was having a rough game. It's probably very evident that it was bothering him in that first half. And I really do like the move where if it was bothering him, the Pacers did the right thing shutting him down. And I'm just very happy that the boys were able to rally around that and not skip a beat. They actually picked up their play, which was awesome to see. But yeah, I am a little bit worried about Haliburton.
It was good to see him back out on the floor, I guess that we should say. During that second half, he was shown in a hoodie and sweats. So it wasn't like he was back in the locker room getting extra treatment. So like you said, good that they actually pulled him instead of letting it linger if it wasn't, if it was not too serious, right? I think they have to just be very careful with it. I think there's been a reason why fans have said, like, we got to let Haliburton sit for a couple games because we got to get this hamstring healthy. But I will say this. I think the team took it to another level because of the injury. I think that this Pacers team all season long has been a great third quarter team. Chris and Quinn did a great job pointing that out and talking about how good they've been in the third quarter. But defensively, this team took it to another level, and that's what they were able to do when you insert Ben Shepherd into the lineup for Tyrese Haliburton. And we already know this because we've seen it happen the last couple of years. Andrew Nembhard is very capable of running this Pacers offense without Tyrese Haliburton. He's gotten very comfortable in that role because he's had to do it far too often. I think more often than we would actually like, but still, he's comfortable in that position. Mathurin and Siakam got going in the early third. They both had 7 points each. Nembhard had a 2 there, so like that's 16 points from your big three right there. But Ben Shepherd, I felt like his defense was really important in that stretch, and I think it just really kind of made things more difficult because when you look at this Pacers team, the biggest weakness on defense for Indiana is Tyrese Haliburton. And obviously you're a better team with him on the court because of his ceiling offensively, but this defense was really locked in, and the Cleveland Cavaliers could not buy a three in the second half. So really, you eliminate Cleveland's outside game, get better perimeter defense in there. I mean, honestly, like this just a perfect, scenario here for the Pacers without, and if you don't include the Haliburton injury.
Yeah, I know. I wish Haliburton would have been healthy, and then all of this, it's like this, we would have nothing to complain about. So it was going to be something for us to complain about, sadly. But yeah, Ben Shepherd played really good defense. You look at Haliburton, who was struggling from the field in the first half, but also, he was a minus 14. You look at the bench. The bench was incredible. I mean, they really were. And defensively, this was the first time all season Cleveland has been held below 100 points. Indiana holds them to 93. I don't care who you are. You hold any team to 93 points in this league, in this year, this era, that's really good stuff. When you're talking about the team with the best record in the NBA, you hold them to 93 on their home court. That is really impressive stuff. Pacers defense has definitely stepped up over the past, however many weeks. This stretch, of course, during this winning streak, it's been much better than what we saw early on in the season. But there was a lot of guys that really stepped up. When Haliburton went down, Mathurin really caught fire. In that third quarter alone, I think it was Mathurin had 10, Obi Toppin had 10, I think Siakam had 9. I mean, it was like they really came out, guns blazing that third quarter to erase a deficit, a 15-point deficit, and eventually go on to win by 15. I just can't say enough impressive things about this group tonight.
I mean, a 30-point turnaround in the second half is just remarkable. I mean, it really is just, it leaves you speechless because we're not, I would say I'm not accustomed to seeing this version of the Cavs this great. I won't lie, I haven't sought out a lot of Cavs basketball this year. I know they've been unbelievable. 33-4 entering tonight. They've only lost 2 games in a row going back to when they lost to Atlanta in back-to-back games. Interestingly enough, the Pacers played them in back-to-back games. So we'll see what Indiana does on Tuesday, nationally televised game on TNT. I put the question out there on Twitter today because I was curious. If the Pacers can only win one of these games, do you want to snap the streak in Cleveland or do you want to do it on your home floor on national television? I think there's some pros and cons to both, but getting the win in Cleveland to me is more impressive than winning on your home floor on the second night of that 2-game series. But regardless, you bring up some great points here about this third quarter and how good Mathurin, Siakam, and then Toppin was. I mean, when Toppin came into the game, he had a little stretch there. That's when the Pacers ended up going up by 7. They were kind of like trying to get that lead, but it was still pretty close. He hits a 3 that was beautiful on a fast break play. Then he has that reverse dunk that he did with ease. It's just Obi Toppin, when he is at his best, that bench looks like a totally different unit. So I just got to give a lot of props to Obi because Obi was fantastic in this game. Only played 18 minutes, but 5 of 10 from the field for 12 points. 3 steals from Obi Toppin as well. Just a very, very solid game from him, and a lot of his production came there in that third quarter as Indiana was starting to pull away from Cleveland.
I mean, just they hold the Cavs to 18 points in that third quarter. They held the Cavs to 19 in the first. It's like, that is incredibly impressive. But for this Pacers team, yeah, I just feel like that third quarter, they just turned it on when they easily could have just rolled over and just kind of admitted defeat. Your star player, he's not going to be coming back out there. You're down 15. You're on a home court that only the Cavs have lost one time to. I feel like there's a lot of things that would have been easy to make excuses.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell only had 2 points, and he had 0 points in the first quarter, 2 points in the third. I just feel like Indiana did a really good job on Mitchell. I know he finished with 19, but it's on 7 of 17 shots.
Yeah.
I mean, Darius Garland, 7 of 16. I just feel like, Indiana gave the Cavs all they could handle. And your point with the next game being on national television, I wish this one would have been, because I wanted more people to see this. I feel like, maybe rightfully so, the Pacers have not been getting talked about by the media. Sure, we had won 5 straight games coming into this. It's impressive to you and I and the fan base, but it takes time for the media to actually catch on. You beat the Cavs in Cleveland, it means something. If you did it on national television, it means even more. But for right now, I mean, I'd have to look on it on short term. I don't know who's beaten Boston and Cleveland. I could tell you nobody other than the Indiana Pacers has beaten Boston twice and beaten Cleveland. So right now, Indiana's doing what they did last year. They get up for these big games. And lately, hey, we've taken care of business against the teams that we should beat. We're seeing the team that we knew they were capable of. They now climb 4 games above 500. They're in the fifth seed. They're tied for fourth. I know these standings, they're going to flip flop every single day. But right now, there is a lot of hope for this fan base. And about a month ago, that was not the case. NFL season for the Colts, hey, it's done. This is Pacer basketball time right now.
Facci, it's been about 10 to 12 minutes since we started recording, and it has been way too long for us to now just bring up Jarus Walker. Jarus Walker was unbelievable in this game, and I might even venture out to say this was his best game as a professional. He had 12 rebounds in 22 minutes. He had 2 assists, 2 steals, a block. He only had 8 points on 3 of 5 shooting, which is still really good. 2 from 3, but a plus 21.
Incredible.
Jarus Walker was a difference maker, and there in the first half, I wondered, is Jarus Walker going to play tonight? Because it took them so long to bring him back in or bring him into the game. I think they subbed him in for Mathurin. And I was like, okay, I was kind of curious, like, what are they going to do here? Because they had Toppin, Siakam, and Thomas Bryant on the floor at the same time trying to match up with Cleveland's size. But then here came Jarus Walker. He hits a deep 3 in the first half as the shot clock's expiring. And then in the second half, he was a absolute menace. Facci, we will get to our player of the game later, but I think that Jarus Walker really has a strong case to be tonight's player of the game.
Very well could be. He was feisty. There's an award coming his way. I'll tell you that.
I don't think he should get feisty. I think he was more impactful than Feisty Foster. That's what I'm going to say.
Okay. Hey, look. I mean, look. There's definitely I got no problem spreading the wealth, giving it to Jarus Walker. I know we haven't gotten there yet, but I love when another guy steps up and rewarding them for it. I think I don't want to jump for who was clutch. We'll get into all of that later. But I felt like just going across the board. Look, Mathurin 5 of 15 struggles in the field, but it was that third quarter that I mentioned where he had 10 of his 12. Those 10 points in that quarter, they were big. Tyrese Haliburton, we already touched on that. Hey, it didn't go well, but Andrew Nembhard in that fourth quarter, I mean, he scored 11 of his 19 in the fourth. I feel like that's when he saved his best for last. And I'm sure you felt this way. I mean, as it came to recording this podcast, I didn't want to text you too early, but it was like once all of a sudden Indiana's up like 10 and there's however many minutes left, maybe it's 8 minutes or 9 minutes. I'm like, oh man, we might actually win this. And it's like as time's going on, you needed a guy like Andrew Nembhard to continue to just keep the Cavs off, just keep them at a distance, and to save, for 11 of your 19 for the fourth quarter. He did on 7 of 11 shooting. I mean, just really stepping up in the absence of Tyrese Haliburton.
And that's why I think it's without question the Reggie Miller clutch player of the game is
No
Andrew
doubt
Nembhard.
about it. None.
Unbelievable close to the fourth quarter. Put this team on his back. Got the post-game interview with Jeremiah Johnson. Look, I tweeted it with about 3 minutes left in the game. I said, looks like the Pacers are about to – I said, it looks like there's about to be a winning streak snapped tonight in Cleveland, and it's not the Pacers. There was about I think the Pacers were up like 16, 17 points at this point. Cavaliers get 2 threes back-to-back, and people said, oh, you spoke too soon. Then Andrew Nembhard, he comes to my rescue, just like he always does for me. Hits back-to-back buckets, and the Pacers pretty much never look back. Cavs throw in the white flag, put all their subs in, and I said, guys, quit saying that I'm jinxing it. Andrew Nembhard's got this. So just relax. We've seen this happen time and time again. Yeah. Andrew Nembhard, when you think your back's against the wall, I understand that he struggled in the closing moments against Drew Holiday and the Celtics in the playoffs. That's his second season, okay, in the league. Andrew Nembhard is someone the Pacers refuse to trade, okay?
I love it.
I put a tweet out probably about a month ago when Nembhard was slowly making his comeback, and I said at the end of the season, Andrew Nembhard is going to be the big three in the Pacers' big three with Siakam and Haliburton, and it's not Turner. I will just say this. My first game back, I did wear my lucky socks, by the way, to the Warriors game, so you can thank me for that one.
I was wondering about that.
Got that monkey off my back. But I will say this. I did have some people reach out to me privately and say, great tweet. Even the Pacers' assistant governor, Stephen Simon, commented on it and said, wow, and he liked it, okay?
Love it.
Just throwing it out there. That's all I'm going to say.
Hey, look, I mean, you're right. That's the thing is Andrew Nembhard, I saw that tweet. I think Mark Stein put something out recently saying like the Pacers refused to trade him or he's I don't know if they used the term untouchable or not, but I love that. And I love the fact that Indiana got ahead on that extension. I remember one day went by. He was extension eligible for one day, and it wasn't signed. And I went, he's probably not signing an extension. And they got him on day two. I remember.
Overreaction, Facci? No, not you.
Well, I mean, hey, I was a little nervous, but I'm so glad that they got ahead on that extension because I couldn't imagine the type of payday that he'd be, heading towards, or other people that could have been involved, or just the drama of wondering, well, what does Indiana do with the deadline? If he's not going to sign an extension, do you have to entertain trades or anything? I'm just happy that we could shut that door. So Nembhard has been huge. I want to say now that Indiana is 17-8 with Andrew Nembhard in the lineup.
He's
17
been unreal.
That is like winning basketball.
And what's crazy to me is like, if you look at the box score, especially against the Warriors, you're like, man, Nembhard had a rough night. It's like Andrew Nembhard sacrifices so much of building up his stat line, which I think he's at career highs for everything right now this season. But I'm just saying, on a consistent basis, if you look at his stats, he's always kind of like third or fourth in points or field goal attempts, even sometimes like sixth or seventh. He just is like what Rick Carlisle labeled at the beginning of the season, no maintenance. And I was sitting next to Dustin Dopiriak of the Indy Star during the Warriors game, and I just looked at him and I said, Andrew Nembhard could be a starter on a lot of teams. He goes, absolutely. And it's just like, I know people get annoyed with how big of a fan that I am with him, but it's just like, did you see that on-off stat that was a graphic put out? I shared it. I retweeted it. There was an on-off number. The top three players with on-off when their team's off versus when they're on. Nikola Jokic, number one. Andrew Nembhard, number two. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, number three. Okay,
that's crazy company right there.
I'm just telling you, like, that is how impactful he is. Am I saying he is as good as those players? Absolutely not. But he is that impactful to the success of this team, and he's only in year 3. I'm telling you, the sky is the limit for this guy. I hope they can keep him past this contract extension, but I do believe that someday he will probably want a bigger opportunity because he deserves it. So for every year that he's here, I'm going to enjoy it and I'm going to rave about it because he is that impactful to this team. Now, as we transition, the person that I think deserves a ton of praise once again is a guy that we named the episode after 2 games ago against the Chicago Bulls, Thomas Bryant. Thomas Bryant in this game and against the Warriors, he had a great fourth quarter. But in this game against the Bulls, against the Cavs, what an incredible defensive performance that he had on Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley has been absolutely incredible this season, and Kenny Atkinson has really unleashed him and kind of unlocked some areas of his game that weren't great. But Thomas Bryant, as a backup 5, really made things difficult for him. Even on the shots Mobley made, it was a really solid defense. Bryant, just an absolute hustler out there. Like, he's your feisty guy, probably for me, Facci, if we're going to give out nominations. Sure. I just felt like his play tonight was so good. 5 of 5 from the field, timely basket after timely basket. This is a guy that is looking like a long-term answer potentially at your backup 5 spot.
I'm right there with you where it's just like, look, as of right now, and I know he's been playing so well lately, it's like, how could you not bring this guy back? Like, he's happy to be here. Things are going great. And like, I started to look at things recently to be like, okay, well, like, you can't pin this winning streak on, like a Thomas Bryant or one guy. But they brought in Thomas Bryant. His first game was against the New Orleans Pelicans. And that's, since then, they have an incredible record
12-3
with Thomas Bryant. Yeah, exactly. 12-3. 12-3 with Thomas Bryant. And like I said, we're not giving him all the credit, but like, that was a really good under the radar pickup. There's the combination of just getting Nembhard back, getting Thomas Bryant. It was like such a huge boost for this team. Obviously, getting Ben Shepherd back was big as well. But like, man, I just feel like this was they didn't have to make this big splash in order to get better. It's like, you have a good team. You just need to play better as a team, and that is exactly what we're seeing now. So, yeah, I couldn't imagine what, Enrique Freeman would be doing in those minutes. That's not to say, like, I'm not trying to jab him, but you're talking about Evan Mobley, a very special player in this league. The number 2 overall pick from just a couple years ago, an all-star in this league, a guy who could be a future defensive player of the year. And then you look at what Thomas Bryant was able to do to just kind of make things difficult for him. I love it. The bench tonight, there wasn't like a big scoring performance or everything. I felt that, honestly, everybody played well off the bench. Obi Toppin was a plus 10. Jarus Walker was a plus 21. Johnny Furphy barely played, so that's not fair. But Thomas Bryant plus 12. TJ McConnell, who had been,
He's
maybe
still
not
not shooting well.
yeah, exactly. Like, look, it's not a vintage McConnell game by any means, and it's been a while for that. But 6 points, 8 assists, 4 boards. Like, the hustle is always there. So I'm not going to say, oh, the hustle was there. Like, it always is. And then Ben Shepherd, we talked about the defense. You just got good play out of the bench. This wasn't this really high scoring game where the bench was able to give you, 40 to 50 points or so, but I felt like they played hard. You got a lot of rebounds off the bench, especially because you got 12 out of Jarus Walker. There was good defense. I mean, you got 7 steals from your bench unit. That's awesome.
Yeah, the bench was great, and that's been a problem, I would say, for the Pacers over the last week or so. The bench has not been playing well, and I think T.J. McConnell's lack of production has been part of that. Now, we talked about this, I think it was against the Bulls, where I was like, T.J. McConnell's back hurts because he was carrying that team for so long, and you brought up all the stats where he had double digits, where he had 30 points one game. Like, McConnell had been playing really well, but it feels like in the month of January, he's not been as effective shooting the basketball. I haven't looked up the stats for a per-game basis since January, but he hasn't been shooting the ball particularly well. And I will just say this, from what I've seen from him, the little running jumper that he usually takes, a little fall-away jumper, like that has not been falling like it usually does. And the three-point shot obviously is a non-factor at this point with McConnell this season. But the thing that he is able to do, no matter what he's doing shooting-wise, is get into the paint. And that is one thing that Haliburton doesn't do enough, in my opinion, is get into the paint, especially early on in this game. I'm not sure if you recognize this or not, but it felt like all the Pacers shots in that first 2 minutes before they called a timeout were outside jumpers. They were really struggling to even get their foot inside the free throw line. They just weren't doing it, but they ended up changing some of that up when they took that first time out early on. But McConnell constantly gets his foot in the paint and allows him to kind of spread out. Now, when McConnell's playing off ball, it does make it a little bit easier for the opponent to defend. They kind of do like a 4-on-5 thing there because they just leave McConnell open as a floor spacer because they're not worried about it. But McConnell still can catch the ball and drive on that because of the late attack, and then hopefully that shifts their defense and it gets another guy open. So I understand that McConnell's numbers haven't been like jaw-dropping like they were, but he still impacts the game just like he did tonight. Clearly needed him, and Nembhard got in early foul trouble, and I think that is what really hurt his plus-minus a lot, was that early foul trouble because he had to come out when they were getting beat pretty early on. But I just thought that McConnell came in, was kind of that steady ship, played pretty good defense, and, that's what he does. So overall, like, not the greatest McConnell game, but he still brought you the production that you needed and really just made some good, timely passes. I think he led the team in assists, if I'm not mistaken. So just some really good stuff from him, and I know that's a long conversation there that I just kind of brought up some points, but just good for McConnell. And I think fans need to realize, like, just because a guy's not scoring at the same rate they once were doesn't mean that they're not still having an impact on the game.
No, totally. I feel like McConnell is like, you need him out there, especially we don't know what the absence could be for a Tyrese Haliburton. You just know that TJ McConnell is going to step up if there is an absence from Haliburton. So I'm quite confident that I think we're both in agreement. Hey, if Haliburton is to miss time, Ben Shepherd probably steps into that starting lineup. You still leave McConnell off the bench, and I think that you still have enough off the bench where it's like, okay, they're still good, but obviously it's getting thinner. So another thing that Rick Carlisle pointed out before the game is how Indiana has done a good job of getting more possessions. This is yet another game where Indiana gets up 9 more shots than their opponent. They matched Cleveland from the free throw line with 18 free throws. I mean, that's great. It wasn't a good 3-point shooting game from either team. Indiana, won the rebounding battle. They get to the 30 assists that you always want to get to. I just feel like, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I would love to see how Indiana's done recently from a rebounding perspective, because I do feel that they have hung with every team, if not really won the rebounding battle lately. And that's something that we haven't been able to say for years. So I just really like the effort that I'm seeing from this team on a consistent basis now. I mean, a 6-game winning streak. That's the highest winning streak of the year right now. Obviously, we were running into Cleveland again. We know it's going to be tough, but no matter what happens at that point, we've seen that, like, on any given night, the Pacers can beat any team in this league.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing that's frustrating about this team, especially early on, is because they weren't playing at the high compete level we know they're capable of playing at. And so I asked Pascal Siakam after the game on Friday, like, you guys have won 5 in a row, 11 of your last 14. Like, what has been different about this team? And he said, we're playing smarter basketball and better basketball and longer stretches. It was far too often they would have good stretches of good basketball, but it wasn't sustained throughout the 48 minutes. And he talked about their defense improving and things like that. And I think that, to me, has been the biggest thing here, because Cleveland really turned the ball over quite a bit in that third quarter, and that's what allowed Indiana to get so many opportunities there. I mean, that to me was where the game changes, because the Pacers took care of the basketball while Cleveland didn't. I think the Pacers ended up having about 9 more shot attempts at the end of the day than Cleveland. So that just kind of shows you, like, turnovers are big, and 9 shots is massive, and especially a game where the Cavs were held under 100 points for the first time in a season. Like, that was not a good half for the Cavs. So regardless, I just have to say this, like, it was just an incredible effort from top to bottom. You look at the stat line, nobody's stat line really pops off. Like, Pascal took 21 shots tonight. Like, we've been begging for him to take more shots, but he didn't have an efficient number. Like, the shooting percentages were not good from really either side, but I think the Pacers shot like 31% from 3, which is not good. And Turner, like, I think he went 5 of 10 from the field, but like early on, he could not hit a 3, and he was wide open multiple times. But it just took time for this team to get going. But once they did, once they clicked, and once they like locked in, it was a totally different game. So honestly, like, I get it. Like, this is the way you want to start your Monday off. You want to go into work, Facci. Like, we talk about a pep in the step. No, there's a leap in the step today.
Literally. Oh, I'm skipping steps. All right. So, I mean, this is what we're dealing with here. I mean, there's levels to these wins. You could beat the Brooklyn Nets, and it's like, all right, cool. All right. So we handle business. You could beat the Chicago Bulls, and it's like, well, we should beat the Bulls. You beat the Warriors. There's no Steph Curry or Draymond. Like, you have to win that game. You beat Cleveland in Cleveland. That means something. I started texting my friends. I was talking a little smack. Other fan bases. Like, this win meant something to me. And one thing that I want to point out, in the first half, the Cavs shot just over 50%. In the second half, the Cavs shot 25% from the field. I have never been able to see stifling Pacer defense. Well, I can't say never. In the last few years, and the Pacers were a good defensive unit for like 20 years. But, like, look, in this stretch of the last few years, defense and the Pacers has not been talked about in a positive light. Tonight, we really saw it. This team's buying in. They don't need to be reminded. They don't have to make the same excuses time and time again saying we need to be better. They have been better. And since this the clock has struck midnight on 2024 and the start of 2025, man, fewer teams have been as impressive as the Indiana Pacers. I'm obviously biased, but I know, like, that, the Thunder and the Cavs are playing really good basketball. It's time to start saying, hey, who's playing good ball? How about them Indiana Pacers?
And don't forget about the Sacramento Kings, okay? They've won 7 in a row, okay?
Yep.
After they lost to the Pistons and fired Mike Brown, they've won 7 in a row. Light the beam. DeMar DeRozan has been doing DeRozan stuff. I think they've now won 4 in a row without De'Aaron Fox. So, they've been balling without him. Sabonis on Friday night, 28 rebounds against the Celtics with Porzingis in the game.
Yeah.
So, and we saw how Sabonis struggled against Porzingis at times here in Indiana. So, anyway, just throwing it out there, like, the Kings are playing very good basketball. I want to give them respect, but we don't care about the Sacramento Queens. I mean, the Kings. This is the Indiana Pacers podcast, okay? We're setting the pace, okay? We're not living in La La Land, wishing that we could hopefully make the playoffs. This is a team now that went from a play-in team to now, like you mentioned earlier, 5th in the Eastern Conference. Our buddy Ty Windish from the Blue Wire Podcast Network, Eurostep host of their Milwaukee Bucks podcast, is already getting discouraged because the Bucks are now in 6th, and the Pacers are a half a game ahead of them. So they do have the tiebreaker right now with winning 2 games early in the season against the Pacers, which will be big, I think, potentially down the stretch. But Indiana just has to keep building off this. We'll see whether Haliburton plays on national television against the Cavs. If I'm the Pacers, I'm going to be very, very cautious with this.
I would be.
You're going to have a nice little stretch here where you play the Pistons on Thursday, you play at home on Saturday against Philadelphia, and then they're heading out to Europe. They're playing France. They're playing the Spurs in France, in Paris, France. So Is that Europe? I feel really stupid if that's not Europe.
Look, I'm no big geography guy, so
I'm not
I'm not
either.
gonna
I'll look it
comment
up.
on.
Take the mic from me. I'm just
Yeah,
rambling
I'm
right
just
now.
gonna say they're playing in Paris. So, in a perfect world, it would be great if Indiana can get Haliburton some rest. I know Haliburton loves to play
I
on
was
the
right.
national
It's
teams.
Europe.
Good, good,
Okay.
great. And look, I assumed it was, but I'm not a mathematician. I'm not a
Mathematician.
geography guy. Here's the thing: I don't think you can hold them out too long, but like hold them out against Cleveland. That's really going to be tough, and it's just too soon. I just feel like don't put that hamstring to the test.
Yeah.
Could you beat Detroit without him? I think you can. And then you're talking about that game against Philly at home on Saturday before all of a sudden the next game isn't until almost a week later. I feel like if you can hold them out for these next 3 games and you go 2-1, I think that's fantastic. I really think it is. And all of a sudden you're getting Halliburton about 2 weeks rest. I think
Yeah.
that would go a long, long way.
I would bank if I had money and I was a betting man, I would bet Aaron Nesmith is back against the Spurs.
It would be nice. I feel like this is that it sounded like a couple weeks ago that it was like, hey, he should be back by the end of the year. That's what it sounded like for 2024. So my guess is when I looked at like that Boston series and hey, you know what? That means a little something to him. That feels like it was ancient history ago. That was like 3 weeks ago. That was like probably a good 2 weeks ago. So I feel like if he's back by San Antonio, that you're talking about almost being back 3 to 4 weeks after it sounded like he could be back. And we've seen him in shoot around and stuff. I would imagine he's got to be close. And I
He's
think that if
close.
you can,
He is
if you
very
can,
close.
yeah, if you can hold him out a little bit and then bring him back against San Antonio, that's still a good week from now, about 10 days. I think that's some really good rest time right there.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they bring him back, how he looks, if he's rusty, if he's not, does he disrupt the flow that this team is playing with right now? Like, there's a lot of factors into it because you do need Aaron Nesmith come playoff time. And Tyrese Haliburton has been adamant the last couple of games to highlight that Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard are their top two defenders. He has said that at least 2 times after games that I can remember in the past week. So, it's no slight on anybody else. I know Ben Mathurin's been playing much, much better basketball, and he's fitted in really well with the starting five. I did ask Tyrese about that fit and how, Mathurin's been playing and how they've kind of, figured things out. And Halliburton kind of gave me a quick answer and didn't really dive into too much of it. So I don't think he was in the mood to really talk about his fit with Mathurin right now at this point. But I don't have a chance to really ask him outside of the post-game stuff. So I just threw it out there. But regardless, this team's playing great basketball. Great win tonight. Awesome effort. So many guys involved. Now we got to give our player awards out. I've made the case for who I think should get what. I said player of the game, or excuse me, our MVP. Mel Daniels MVP of the game to me should be Jarus Walker. Who do you think it should be?
I'm right there with you. Let's spread the wealth. I feel like if not now for Jarace, then when? And hey, look, I like the fact that a lot of different players have been able to get this award throughout
Yeah.
the season. I think this is Jarace's time. So I'm definitely cool with Jarus Walker for MVP. As it relates to the clutch player, I think that we're probably in agreement for Andrew Nembhard. 11 of 19 in the fourth quarter definitely checks the box for clutchness. And then for Feisty, you tell me, what do you got for the Feisty Foster?
Yeah, this is tough. I think that there's 2 guys to me that I would say stand out the most. You could probably make the case for a third, but I'm just going to say the 2 that stand out to me the most. Thomas Bryant for what he did in this game and Obi Toppin.
Yep. I mean, it's tough. I think we can go Thomas Bryant. I feel like he did play good defense in this game. I feel like he maximized his minutes. I thought Obi Toppin was really good as well. I think Obi had like that, that really good third quarter where, he got it going. He did have quite a few steals as well. So if we do want to have him share, I don't
We
have
could do Co. We could do Co.
Yeah, I was
Feisty
gonna say I
Foster.
don't know if we've ever really done a co, but I think it's fair that they share this one.
Yeah, Kobe. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Co plus Obi. I'm just kidding. But
It's not bad. Tough.
and then you got Brian in there as well. So
That is true. It's clever. It's clever.
it's
They
a dad joke, and dad jokes hit harder when you're a dad, right?
They
You know what I
do.
mean?
They do.
But yeah. So anyway, great game from the Pacers. Obviously, just one of those games where you're just like ready to race to the microphone and talk about a win and just get excited
time.
about it. And I will say this: it's really funny because I was driving home today and I was just thinking about things, and I'm just kind of like, I really try to do a good job of being like professional because I am doing some media work now and referring to the Pacers as the Pacers versus us and things like that, trying to kind of shift things. But I thought to myself, there was a time in my life when I was single, when I was going through ups and downs with relationships and I was alone and things like that. Like, and what was the thing that really kind of gave me some extra motivation to be excited for some stuff? Like, obviously, like, living for God's a big thing for me, but obviously, like, there's other things too. Like, what's my purpose? And I was like, man, the Pacers have just been like that for me. Like, I like was so engrossed in Pacers basketball. Like, every night I would put everything aside to make sure I'm watching the games. It was like, and wins and losses would affect my mood the next day. Like, that's just how it was for me when I was probably in like my early 20s. So, as I've kind of like grown out of that, and I guess you could say matured, I just kind of felt like going back to my roots. I felt like I was going back to my roots tonight watching this. I had to have my wife take the baby for a little bit because I was like, I said, babe, you got to hold Fletcher because I'm getting too excited here. I'm throwing some fist bumps in the air when I'm seeing Nembhard hit shots 5 feet behind the 3-point line with the shot clock expiring. Thomas Bryant with, a nasty dunk. I'm just like, this is just fun basketball. So I don't know if you've ever been to that at that point in your life, but it just where the Pacers were pretty much like everything outside of a few small things, like family and things like, or big things like family and stuff like that. But like Pacers basketball can kind of just like change your mood. And like tonight, it's one of those nights where you just like, man, this was great.
There was a large part of my life where the Pacers were my everything. I mean, trust me. Growing up in New York, being a die-hard Pacer fan, I didn't even know another Pacer fan for honestly until I met you, and that was even through social media. So for a long time, I mean, there used to be some text message service that I used to have to pay like 25 cents just to get an update on the games. I mean, this could have been like 2005, 2006, like whatever it is, like just to text it and have to get charged, but it was like I needed to know what the game was because I'm out on like a Friday night or it's just anything of the sort. The Pacers were there for me at times where there was no girlfriends, there were no kids, there was nothing. And on nights like tonight, it brings back that joy because this was a really big win. I mean, my wife was sitting on the couch. And I kept saying like, babe, we're going to do it. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, we're going to beat Cleveland. She's like, okay. I'm like, no. Like, you got to understand, like, this is the Cavs. Like, they're incredible at home. I'm like trying to like sell it to her. And she's like, like halfway into it, whatever. But like, for me, it was a big deal. And this was one of those nights where I'm like, I cannot wait to get on that microphone. Please do not blow this, Pacers, because I really want to talk about this win. I want to speak highly about this team, and I'm glad that we had that opportunity tonight. Hey, if you are hesitant on this team, stick with them. It's a long season. At times, it felt like it was getting really, really dark, and times like that, like right now, it feels really, really good. And I think that you can make an argument. Maybe they are playing their best basketball. Maybe they haven't played their best basketball yet. But this team is clicking nonetheless, and they do deserve some respect.
Absolutely, Facci. They really do. And I think that you guys are going to enjoy some podcasts we have coming up this week. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking with our friend Bob Schmidt from Fear the Fro, a Cleveland Cavs podcast. He was in my mentions. I don't know if he was in your mentions tonight, Facci, but I know he was interacting with some Pacer fans. I know Rooster is a fan of Bob Schmidt, and Bob is great on this show, by the way. But we're going to be talking about what we saw in Game 1, what we're looking forward to seeing in Game 2. Obviously, it will probably be a much different story than what we saw tonight. And then, of course, Facci and I will be back after Pacers-Cavs Part 2 to recap that game. And then we had some YouTube questions or comments, I guess you could say, asking us, where is the Cam Johnson trade podcast? So me and Facci are going to record that tonight, Sunday night, after we're recording this Cavs recap, Game 1 recap. So it will be a couple of days, pre-recorded, but me and Facci are definitely going to dive into that. So if you're looking for the Cam Johnson Pacers podcast trade episode from us, it is coming this week. It'll drop in your feed on probably Wednesday night, Thursday morning. So be on the lookout for that. And then I will be back Thursday night, Friday morning, recapping the Pistons game. Bryce Simon, who Facci had on earlier this year when I was in the hospital, he's going to be joining me, and we're going to have a deep dive because the Pistons could have close to $27 million in cap space in free agency, and somebody on the Pacers could be a big target of theirs. Long-time Pacer, 10-year guy, Miles Turner.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that would be something. It really would. You hope you don't see the day, but anything's possible in free agency when not a lot of teams have a lot of money. But yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming up for you guys. Appreciate you, tuning in. I think that this is one of the best times to be a Pacer fan all season long. I feel like my love for this team, it's just it's getting higher and higher as football is going down. It's just one less sport to focus on, one more sport to kind of pour your attention into, and I'm hyped up over this win.
Yeah, this one will definitely make you forget about the Denver Broncos playoff game.
That I wasn't gonna say it. I was more thinking it, but yeah, the Broncos season's over. That's my squad. If you guys aren't familiar, started out with a bang on the first drive. Bo Nix there's a great touchdown. Broncos go up 7-0, and then that was it. I mean, there was nothing memorable after that. So Broncos season, it was great. It's over with. I'm happy to lay it to rest. Football season could be long, a lot of weeks, but at the same point, it was a fun season. But my Indiana Pacers, you got my attention now.
Alrighty, Pacer fans. Well, if you haven't already, please subscribe on the YouTube channel, like this episode, let us know what you think in the comments section below. And if you're listening on the audio platform, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. But Facci, if you're excited that the Pacers have the longest active winning streak in the Eastern Conference with 6 straight dubs, by double digits, too. Hit me with those 3 words.
Let's go, Pacers.